Mara.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. Is it too warm? Can you turn it off? Yeah. Oh yeah. That's just fun. We'll give people another moment or two to get on before we start our accountability, and then I'll introduce Galen. Oh.
What happened, Mara?
My computer died. So rude. It didn't even warn me.
The way you acted, I thought maybe a mouse ran across your room.
No. The screen would have been a lot louder.
Oh, okay.
All right, so we'll go ahead and get started with our accountability. I love Mondays. I think I say this every Monday because it allows you guys to look at how productive you were over the weekend as well. So go ahead and share how many contacts you made and if you entered into any contracts or went on any appointments. And Vanessa, you want to get us started?
Yeah, I never go first. I wasn't expecting that. I have 12 new contacts over the weekend, and I had an like a virtual meeting, I guess, with a lender. I have some buyers kind of lined up. They're just being a little flaky right now, so working on that. I have another buyer I'm trying to book a meeting with right now. But he's really busy with his and his wife's schedule, so that's what I got.
Keep working on it. Great job. Jamie?
We're doing good things that happened to us.
We are doing the contacts you've made, and if you've gone on any appointments or writing any contracts.
I wrote 2 contracts last week, got 1 pending. I am a little low on new buyers, new clients, but I did have 1 buyer's appointment last week.
Awesome. Deanna?
I made 15 new contacts and added those into my database. And I did go show 3 houses on Saturday. And then I also have the 1 buyers are supposed to be closing this week. And then we have the go ahead to help my other buyers find a house. So
Hey, awesome.
What?
I was using that light to see.
Marissa went and did hers in the chat. So Stella.
Come on.
Hello, everybody.
Hey.
Yes, so on Friday, I had a conversation with a buyer, and I sent them, they wanted to buy maybe in 2 to 3 months from now. And I will help them to find the home. It's really convenient because they live in the area where I live, so I'm very familiar with the neighborhoods. So I sent them the buyer packet and all the questions regarding the property they're looking for. They're reviewing, they should get back to me and we will start right there. Actually, I wanted to ask you a question. I should wait before, I should get the information and then set up a search on RMLS, right?
Yep.
Because
Yeah.
I know some basic information what they're looking for, but I sent them an email. I need to know the 5 must-haves, all other information. After that, I'll just start a search on RMLS.
Perfect. Julie.
Hi there. So I have made 10 follow-up phone calls and I've added 4 people to my database. I wrote a contract on Saturday, which got accepted. And so I'm the one for both parties on the contract. I'm the buyer's agent and the seller's agent. So that went pending. And I just got a call. I have a listing that they're writing an offer on. So
Awesome. Great.
looking forward to that. Yeah.
Amy.
Hello, I entered 2 new contacts over the weekend. I got a exclusive buyer's agreement signed this weekend. I'm gonna write up my first offer this week. And I have an appointment tomorrow with a buyer.
Yay, good. Awesome. Courtney.
Hi, I had just 1 person in the open house that I hosted over the weekend that was a good lead that I followed up with and added to the database. But contacts wise, I think I'm probably at like 15 or so between phone calls and follow-up emails and texts. And this Wednesday, I'm meeting with some sellers to talk about getting their house finished up to list. So it's still a little before the actual listing agreement will be signed, but I'll keep you guys posted.
Great. And John, welcome to the live class today.
Yeah, anyway, I've actually been busy today. Over the weekend, I got like all my family's contacts entered, like 20 contacts over the weekend, but it is just literally friends and family of people, like the wedding list type of thing.
Yeah, great. Those are the major supporters.
Yeah. And then I spent over an hour on the phone today with a lender and an inspector. So
awesome.
Yeah, I thought I was going to get more done today. I did not expect those to each be 30-minute phone calls. And the lender I'm having coffee with on Thursday, the inspector didn't sound like he keeps his schedule pretty busy, it sounds like. So we're not going to meet, but it's the name Liliana gave me. So he seems great. So
awesome. Great. Kayla.
Excuse me. Hi. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. I followed up with, or I got 10 new contacts, and then I followed up with 5 potential buyers. a couple of them are for a different area. So I've been referring them to other people. One of them I've tried to get connected with for a pre-qualification, and she said she messaged the lender, which I'm planning on following up with today to see what's going on with that. And then I did 4 open houses over the weekend, and I got in touch with Heather Ducker to meet up and connect with her next week. And then I guess my only question is, I have about 3 or 4 individuals that I plan on referring to other brokers. How does that work when I'm finding them and getting them, helping them get qualified, and then I hand them off to a team member?
So if they're out of the area and you're giving referrals, you will want to fill out a referral form, which we have in the QW internet. And then typically a going rate for that is 25%. So then once they find a home and close on it, you'll get the 25% of the referral or of the commission.
Okay, excellent. I just took note on that. And then, yeah, and then I followed up with 3 individuals that are looking to purchase in the next 2 or 3 months. I had got in contact with them last week, and I haven't heard back from them since. So I reached out again because I saw one post on Facebook that she's ready to buy. So I wrote to her and I haven't heard back yet. So we'll see.
Awesome. All right, good job. Miriam?
Hi, I had a pretty busy weekend. I added about 8 contacts. On Friday, I met with the lender for coffee, and he seems like a person that I want to work with. So I was happy about that. I worked on editing my buyer's packet to kind of make it what I want to present. And then on Sunday, I actually shadowed another agent during one of their open houses. It was Aubrey Martin. So she's pretty popular, and I was pretty excited to be able to shadow her.
Awesome.
Yeah, and then I have an appointment on Tuesday.
Awesome. Great job. Thornton?
Yes, I just got notice that I closed my first deal today, so that's exciting. And can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. And as far as this weekend, I didn't have too much going on. Or real estate.
Right. Good job. And we did some goal setting today, so that's successful. Abby.
Sorry, I'm late. I had a meeting this morning with my clients that we just got our offer accepted on Friday, and it just went pending today. So I was really excited about that. But they wanted to meet today to like go through the house again, and they went through it for 2 hours. I was like, oh my gosh, guys, please, can we leave? So that was exciting. But I also had a meeting on Sunday with somebody new who I just referred some lenders out to. And they wanted to buy last year, but their credit wasn't quite right. And now their credits are both better. So I'm like, yay, this might be exciting.
Good.
But yeah, overall, I feel like I've had a lot of traction. I've been really, really busy. So
yay, good. Paying off. All right. Well, let Lori in. Okay, we will introduce Galen without any further delay. So Galen has been a real estate broker for 31 years and a principal broker for 12. He has been the team leader for Haas real estate team for 28 years. He started Keller Williams, Eugene, and Springfield from the ground up. And Galen is a coach for Star Power Star. Galen founded Real Pro Systems and is currently a national speaker and trainer on real estate technology and lead generation. So we are always so spoiled to have him here locally, and he's definitely going to spread the knowledge today. I did turn on your little doorbell, Galen, so if you hear that go off, it means someone's in the waiting room in case anyone joins you late, but take it away.
All right. Thank you, Maura.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hi, everybody, for a nice rainy Monday. So, one thing I have to say, I've done quite a few of these Ignite classes, and I don't think I've ever stepped into one of them that I heard so many agents with so much going on. So congratulations to all you guys. Sounds like you're building your databases and doing some business and getting some things going. So very exciting. So I just kind of wanted to start out a little bit before we get into this, because, one of the things that I like to always talk about is growing your real estate business. And, you guys were talking about things that you did. You were kind of updating Mara on your lead generation and what you've got going and so on. And so I just wanted to let you know that one of the biggest things is, and I've been doing this for 32 years now, actually. Here's the number one thing, key to success in real estate, and that is grow your database. That's the number one thing that you need to focus on every single day, is grow your database. And I hope that every one of you have a goal of how many leads that you're going to put into your database every week. And in fact, I would suggest you even break it down to how many leads you're going to enter into your database daily. And so if you do one thing, you focus every day on meeting your goals on how many people you're going to put into your database. And I suggest you do 2 to 3 a day. It's not that hard to do it. It sounds kind of overwhelming sometimes, but you stop and think about it. If you add 3 new leads to your database every single day, that's 21 people a week, 42 people, or I'm sorry, 84 people a month. And then take that times 12. You're going to grow a database pretty quickly, aren't you? And so here's what happens is that if you grow that database, the larger that database becomes, the more people that you have influence over, the more people that know that you're in real estate, the more business you're going to do as a result of that. So what you need to do is focus on growing your database, just as you're all doing. It sounds like you're doing a great job of it. I heard a lot of people that were putting leads in their database over the weekend and doing open houses, all those things you need to do to be getting in front of people. But focus on growing that database every single day. And then on top of that, you need to focus on keeping in touch with that database, because it doesn't do you any good to have a big database if you don't keep in touch with them. So you need to have a plan of what you're going to do to keep in touch with that database regularly. And if you take a look at what Keller Williams has, they have 33 touch, which means they have a plan for you to touch everybody in your database 33 times a year, which I think is great. But I think you need to go a lot further than that. We touch everybody in our database about 8 times a month. Every single person in our database, we touch them about 8 times a month. We do that through a variety of different things. You need to be calling through your database. You need to be talking to them. You need to be direct mailing to them. You need to be reaching out to them on social media. You need to be emailing them. You can send out things like I send out what I call my Monday morning coffee, which I send out every single Monday morning. We reach 15,000 every single Monday morning with that single one email. And then also, you can do other things of just sending out postcards, anything that keeps you in front of that database. And I would suggest that most of you starting out that you at least keep in touch with everybody in your database no less than 3 times a month. 3 times a month. The other thing is you can do things like sending out personal note cards, other things. So grow your database, keep in touch with the database. If you do that and you're consistent with that, you can't fail at this business. You just can't fail at it. And this is the biggest mistake that most agents make is, number one, they don't grow their database, and then they forget about their database. They get busy, and guess what they do? They don't lead generate, and they don't keep in touch with their database. So everything that you do, you need to put on autopilot. So you need to have on your calendar the days you're going to do specific different things, and you don't miss those days. Sending out a newsletter, sending out an email, making phone calls, all those things you need to be. You need to be on a schedule with that, and you need to do it consistently. If you do it for a couple months and then you miss 2 or 3 months because you got busy, guess what? All the momentum you gained through the first couple months that you did it, you just lost it because you got busy and you didn't do it for a couple months. So you need to be consistent with it, and that's probably where most people lose it in this industry is, number one, they don't do those items and they don't stay consistent with them. So sounds like you guys are already on track to get that started. I just wanted to relay how important that is. And today we still do the majority of our business through our database. That's where 75 to 80% of our business comes from every single month. I feed a team of myself and 3 buyers agents with leads through a database. Of course, I've had the advantage of doing this for quite a few years, but you know what? It's up to you on how fast you grow that database and how many leads you put in it. And then it's up to you on keeping in touch with them. So you can grow a database a lot faster than I did in the beginning. I can tell you, I didn't catch on to that until years into doing real estate. And so if you start out today doing that and being consistent with it at this point in your real estate career, you're going to be highly successful. So anyway, with that, I got to figure out how we turn on our PowerPoint here. I'll get to it, hopefully. So there we go. Now I just got to get it on our screen to where we'll get this. Okay. So today we're going to be talking about, I got to work on this just for a sec here. Okay. So today we're going to be talking about making it happen and what it is, and talking about the real estate transaction. So, getting the business and getting, buyers and sellers and getting deals in escrow are one thing. And that's highly important we do that because, as I was just talking to you about databases and lead generation and so on, that's highly important. But the other thing that's important too is once we have a transaction put together, how important is it that we get that transaction closed? Because you know what, we spend a whole lot of time and a whole lot of money generating leads, showing properties, marketing our listings and so on. And, the process to getting to having a deal put together, it's costly, not only in time, but in money. And so making it happen, getting that transaction closed is highly important. We don't want to get all the way there and then not get it closed. So the other thing about it is not only just closing the transaction, but also getting to a point that we use that transaction as a connection between yourself and your client. Because one of the things about it is you generate, especially with buyers and sellers that you've worked with for a period of time, you get into a relationship with them. In fact, a lot of times they become our good friends, don't they? And that's really important because once you develop that relationship, you want to keep that relationship going. And having a smooth process through escrow is an important part of that. So what we're going to talk about today is getting deals closed, going through the escrow process from beginning to end and getting them closed. So one of the things that's really important, I think, is just knowing the whole process of what takes place with the closing. And truthfully, I don't think there's any better way of doing that than getting to know your escrow company and have somebody that you're going to use as a closing agent at that escrow company and getting to know them as well. So most of you probably already done that. You probably already have a title company you're using. You've probably gone in and met with whoever you're going to be using at that title company, and you've developed somewhat of a relationship with them. But the closer you become to them and the closer you can work with that person, it really helps in the process of getting your deal closed. And you know what, if you've got somebody, a title company or an escrow officer that you're not clicking with, you're not relating with, go find another one. There's some really great ones in this town. I'm sure most of you have somebody that's really good that you're working with. But if you don't be afraid to go use somebody else. And because that relationship between you and that title company and that title that escrow officer is really important. So that part of the process is really important. The other part of it is, of course, if you're working with buyers, having a relationship with a lender. And I heard a couple of you talk about that. You just had conversations with lenders, and sound like you're developing relationships with lenders, but that's really important too. Between the lender and the title company, I'll tell you what, they can make or break a deal, and they can also make you look really good or make you look really bad. And so having a relationship with people that you know and you trust and you're in step with, and they have your back all the way through, is a highly important part of this. So having that part of the process down is highly important. So and also having systems that you use. We're going to talk about that today. Systems that you use so that everything that you do through the escrow process is systemized. Because if you do that, you guess what, you don't drop the ball on anything, and it makes your day and the whole time through your escrow very easy if everything is systemized. You send out all the disclosures, you get everything out in a timely manner. You have a checklist that you go through and you don't miss a beat. And again, the other part of it is seize the golden opportunity. Closings are the golden opportunity, because this is where you close the deal with the seller, you get to the closing table, and this is where you meet success with selling their property. And if everything's gone smooth through the whole transaction, you come out of this as a hero. And guess what? They can't wait to go out and tell everybody else about how great their the process they had was with you, and that if they're thinking about buying or selling a house, that they should certainly use you. Now that is something that you can really take advantage of if you have a great process through the whole thing, and they have a great experience. So and then getting paid, of course, that's the ultimate goal of the whole thing, because that's most of us are in real estate for different reasons. We're in real estate because we're people. We enjoy being around people. We enjoy helping people. It's all an important part of it. And that's why most of us are good at real estate that succeed in it, because we enjoy helping people and we enjoy being around people. But at the end of the day, we also need to get paid, because we don't do this for free, just like anybody else that has a business. Getting paid is an important part of that, because you got to pay the bills, you got to support yourself, you got to support your family, so getting paid is an important part of it. So with that, I'm going to see if I can advance this. Okay, so contract to close process. So the first thing that happens, of course, is getting the offer. So if you're working with buyers, you're writing offers. If you're working as a listing agent, of course, you're receiving offers. So the offer comes in, and then you got to go through the process of either rejection, acceptance, or counter offering. So there's a lot of steps many times to the real estate process. And you know what? The market that we're in right now, it can be a little bit challenging too, Canada. I'm sure many of you come up with a situation where you've got a buyer and you've made repeated offers on properties, and it's really competitive out there, and you're having a hard time finding a property for your buyer. So this process gets a little bit cumbersome sometimes, especially in this kind of a market. If you're dealing with listings, it gets a little complicated too, because sometimes we put a listing on the market, and right now, and I just had a house I put on the market, for example, out in Springfield last week, and we had it on the market for 3 days, had 8 offers on it. So now I don't just have one offer, I've got 8 offers, and I've got to go through all 8 of those offers with my seller, and then we've got to go through the process of trying to decide which offer is the most advantageous for that seller to either counter or to accept. And I really didn't understand emotionally how that works for buyers and sellers, but it does. This is really, when you're dealing with offers, it can be emotional for the real estate agent, but man, I'll tell you, for your buyer and seller, this part of it's extremely emotional. And this is one of the areas where you can shine as a pro by how you handle offers coming in or presenting offers. And I didn't, sometimes I need to be educated a little bit this in myself, because I kind of forget what it's like to be a buyer or seller. But right now I've been helping my daughter buy a house down in Phoenix, Arizona. And you think our real estate market here is competitive. My God, Phoenix area is absolutely unbelievable. And we've had, let's see, what have we done now? We've made offers on 7 houses, haven't got one yet. And I keep telling my daughter, I said, here's the biggest thing. You cannot get emotionally attached to any of these properties, because there's maybe a 20% chance you're going to get one of them. And so I finally got her to the point that she's not being so emotionally upset when she loses one of these properties. So the reason I'm bringing that up is because, like I said, this is where you kind of set the tone a lot of times with the buyer or seller, is in how you deal with the offer, and setting their expectations in the beginning is an important part of that. So, and as I just mentioned to you, especially in a market like we're in right now with buyers, setting their expectations that, hey, there may be competition. And here's what we're going to do. Speak to them up front about exactly what you're going to do. How are we going to deal with a market like this where it's so competitive? And as sellers, you need to let them know, hey, we're going to put your property on the market, and you know what? We may have multiple offers on it, and explain to them up front how we're going to deal with multiple offers. So having open discussions with buyers and sellers prior to offers coming in really helps you out because it helps set their expectations and helps set the course of what's going to take place with those offers coming in. So anyway, as we go through that process, hopefully we're going to have an offer that either gets accepted by a buyer or by a seller for your buyer, or your seller accepts. And then the next thing we're going to do, we're going to go from acceptance into they kind of missed one step in this, and I think this is an important one because we're going to open up escrow. So if you are a seller or a listing agent, you're going to open up escrow on that new transaction. If you're a buyer's agent, you can open up escrow, but most of the time the listing agent's going to open up escrow, but you're still going to need to communicate with whatever title company and whatever escrow person you're dealing with at that title company as soon as you've got that accepted offer. So having a system that deals with that with both buyers and sellers is highly important. What do I do when I've got this contract? How am I going to get that to the title company? Who am I going to turn it into? And how am I going to deal with that in a timely manner? So this is all things that you need to have in your checklist on what you're going to do with the title company. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is with any property, we're going to go into inspections. Okay, so inspections, of course, are an important part of any purchase process for buyers. We're going to have an inspector go in and go through the property, and typically they're going to go meet with the inspector at some point in time during the inspection and kind of get the details of the inspection. As a listing agent, your property is going to get inspected and it's going to have a buyer go through it, and you're going to get an inspection report following that, and typically within a period of just a week to 10 days, you're going to be getting some kind of a inspection addendum from the buyer's agent looking or asking for repairs or whatever they might be asking for. If you're a buyer's agent, you're going to be meeting with your buyer and you're going to be going through that inspection, and you're going to be putting together that addendum to send to the selling agent. So you're going to have the inspection reply, and from this, you're going to get either acceptance from that or you're going to get rejection from that. And a lot of times, the inspection can be the most cumbersome part of any real estate transaction. It just can be. And I'll tell you, I'm going to be truthful with you about this. I think the part of real estate that I have the hardest time with, I have from day one, and I still struggle with it, some is inspections. And, because what happens is you typically get into a situation where you're dealing with emotions. You're going to be dealing with a seller that doesn't want to do many repairs typically. Or if they do repairs, they want to hold them to a minimum, and you're going to be dealing with a buyer that sees things wrong with the house and they want them taken care of. Now, in the market we're in right now, a lot of times this isn't the case, because a lot of times for buyers to get houses, they kind of got to be a little bit more lenient on what they ask for in repairs, and sometimes they even waive inspections. So there's a lot of different things that can take place here, but still, I find that most times there is an inspection, and there typically is going to be some repairs taking place there. So your negotiation skills are probably going to be tested the most during this time period of any other time during the transaction, during the inspections. And the biggest thing you have to do here is have a clear head and clear path as to where your buyer or seller is going to be in inspections. And again, setting the stage ahead of time before you get to the point of negotiating repairs, either with the buyer or seller, is going to make this process a lot easier, instead of just throwing down an addendum and say, hey, here's what the buyer wants. But go through, talk to the seller about this process, and typically what's going to take place way before you ever get an inspection report or inspection back from a buyer. Same thing with buyers. Go through and talk to them about the process of doing this, and let them know, that 9 times out of 10, if you go through and nitpick every little thing in a house, we're going to end up with a mess here. The biggest thing you want to look for in an inspection are things that are either safety issues or structural issues, and those are primarily the things that we want to address here. So the other part of this is, I think you also need to have, and I noticed that a couple of you had met with inspectors recently, and I also think you need to have a great relationship with an inspector. When you're working with buyers, have an inspector that you trust, that's going to be honest and is going to go through and also be able to talk with your buyers in a manner that is trustworthy, that they gain the trust of the buyer. They explain everything, they're knowledgeable, and that they go through and they don't try to alarm them with things that are wrong with the house. Because you know what? Every single house that we sell is going to have issues. They just all are. And if you have an inspector that does a great job of finding those issues, that's wonderful, because then your buyer is going to know everything about that house. But also you need an inspector that's going to talk to them about, you know, the relevancy of different things that come up with the inspection and what they should be asking for, and maybe even have great knowledge on what the remedies are for them. So again, you know, if you don't have a relationship with an inspector, talk around to some of the different agents at Keller Williams and find out some names of inspectors that they've used and that they trust and do a great job, and then go interview them. You might interview a couple different inspectors and then come up with you know, the one you like the most, and have a backup, because sometimes you're going to call an inspector and guess what? They're going to be out for 2 weeks, and then you're going to need to find another one. So always have a backup. Okay. So from that point of going through the inspections and, you know, clearing that issue with a agreement between buyer and seller on any repairs or waiving inspections or whatever, we got to get through the inspection. We got to clear that contingency. From there, we're going to head towards the process of getting clear title. So we're going to need to be working with the lender, because at this point in time, we've got an appraisal that's probably taken place. And if we've got a good appraisal that comes back, then the loan now goes to underwriting. And so all the information that buyer has provided that lender with, along with the appraisal, now goes to the underwriter where the loan is underwritten. And from that point, everything is approved by the underwriter. The loan goes to funding, which means money from the lender to the title company to fund the loan that pays the seller for the home, and so on. So that is the next step that comes through. Other escrow instructions would be closing disclosure, closing, funds transferred, and then of course legal recording, which means when a transaction is funded, the money has come in to the title company, funds are ready for disbursement. Now it has to be recorded with the county. Once funds are dispersed and the sale is recorded to the county, now you have a closed sale. You have a legal sale, and the deed is passed. So now you have owner possession. Now this is the other thing. It goes clear back to the negotiating. As we go clear back up to the very beginning of this offer, owner possession can be another thing that can be one of those things that can sometimes be a little bit of an issue if you don't deal with it in the beginning. 9 times out of 10, you're going to have possession that takes place at 5:00 p.m. on the closing date, and everything is going to be easy. But sometimes you could have possession that is a couple of days after closing. You could have a situation where you've got rent back for a seller that's going to stay in a property for a couple of weeks after closing. There can be all kinds of different issues that take place, but having possession be a seamless process after closing is really important. And again, if you do things right from the beginning, you shouldn't have any problems with the possession for the new owner of a property. So anyways, I hope that all helped going through that process. Most of you already know this, but it always helps to kind of go through it again and kind of get a feel for exactly what you're going to be dealing with.
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
But inspection period.
Yes.
So as an agent, it's, we provide inspectors options to our buyers, and they choose with whom they want to go, right?
Yeah, so they're going to choose the inspector. So that's why, you know, you can have a favorite inspector, but it's always a good idea, like I said, to have a couple of them. And you don't want to just say use this one instructor. And I should have been a little bit more clear on that. You can say, here's 2 different inspectors that I use and that I trust. If you have an inspector you'd like to use, you're free to do that. Here's two of them I use and I trust.
Okay.
I use Inspector A most of the time, and Inspector B is just as good.
Okay, and another question. So the buyer will schedule appointment with the inspector and coordinate time. And like as an agent, we don't have to be involved in like scheduling inspectors for the property, right?
You know, here's what I do. I have the buyer choose the inspector, and then I'm the go-between between the buyer and the inspector, because you want to have a little bit of control on when they do it. And a lot of times, if you call that inspector, you can have your buyer call them if you want to, but then call the inspector afterwards so that they know that you're involved in it. So stay involved in that.
And
And
to reconfirm what time and date they coming over for inspection.
yeah, you know, right now inspectors are, you know, as everybody knows, are booked out pretty good. So you're going to kind of have to fit into their time slot on what they've got open. So you don't have a lot of control over that anyway.
I see. And then inspector will send the reports directly to the buyer?
Yeah, so what's going to happen is the inspector is going to come through. He's going to do the inspection. Depending on how busy the inspection is and who the inspector is, you might get that. I've got them back the same day a few times, but typically within 48 hours, you're going to get the inspection report back. You're going to now have that inspection. You're going to have a copy of it. Your buyer's going to have a copy of it. You're not going to provide that inspection to the seller until they request it. So they have to request that inspection before you're going to release it to them. It's important that seller on the other side gets a copy of that inspection. It really helps them understand when you send them an inspection addendum, exactly what's going on with their house, because they've got a copy of the inspection and they can see what the inspector found, and they can kind of get an idea of what, you know, why your buyer may have asked for that repair to be done. Okay, that help?
Yes, and like, do you leave it up to buyer, read the inspection reports, or you set up time with your buyer and get together and like read it together?
Yeah, you want to go through that inspection report with the buyer. So here's what we do. We always have our buyers meet with the inspector at the very end of the inspection, and usually spend a half hour to 45 minutes doing a walkthrough with the inspector, so the buyer kind of understands the inspection that and the things that the inspector found, and the inspector can actually point them out as they do the walkthrough, so the buyer understands things a little bit more. And again, going back to hiring the right inspector, this is where your inspector, if he's got a good bedside manner and can really relate to your buyer, it makes you look super good. So, and then what you want to do is after that, you want to get together with the buyer and you want to go through that inspection report in detail, and then kind of get a feedback or get a feeling from your buyer exactly what their concerns are. I can tell you, and this is something that not only during this process, but any process that you're dealing with a buyer seller, be a better listener than you are a talker. Listen to what they're telling you and don't you do all the talking. Listen to what they tell you, and then it'll give you the opportunity to address what their concerns are. And that's really important with these inspections.
Great, thank you.
Okay. So this is success tip number 1. Throughout the entire contract to close process, follow up regularly with the closing title escrow company and the loan officer to be sure everything is progressing on schedule. Okay, again, this is why it's really important to have a good relationship with the title company. Now, not all the time, especially if you're dealing with buyers on a buyer sale, a lot of times you're going to work with a title company that you don't have a relationship with. So it's important for you, if that is the case, that you call them and develop a relationship with them, whoever you're working with at the title company, that you develop a relationship and start communicating with them regularly. And yes, talk with them all the time. Keep up on exactly what's going on. If you have any questions, call them. The same thing with the loan officer. If you're, if it's your buyer, chances are they may be working with, a lender that you have a relationship with, and that helps a lot. But if you don't, develop a relationship with whoever that lender is. The only time that gets a little bit tough is if you're using one of the online companies, and then it's really a little bit tough sometimes to develop any kind of a relationship with them. In fact, you probably won't. But I found with most of them, it's a little bit tougher, but I can still communicate with them. It's always important to find out exactly what's going on with both the title and the process of the loan for the buyer. Same thing if you're representing a seller. You're going to know who the buyer's loan officer is, who their lender, who the lending company is, and who the loan officer is. Develop a relationship with them. Call them, talk to them, ask them what's going on. Also, talk with the other agent regularly too. Developing a good relationship with the other real estate agents, highly important. And you know what? I find if I start out on a good note with the buyer or with the agent on the other side, and we communicate well through the whole process, usually we don't have any issues. Usually it's communication problems that develop issues down the road. And so having good communications with everybody all the way through, I think is highly important. So anyway, so success number 2, both agents should attend the closing to be a resource to their clients and to be sure items, keys, security codes, openers, etc., providing access, security, and use of the property are turned over to the buyer. It's also a chance to take your client and ask for referrals. So how many of you have been to a closing already? Anybody? Okay. How many of you plan on going to the closing when it closes? If you have a closing, how many of you plan on going? Okay. And get a response from it. I don't know if everybody's turned on here or not, so I didn't get any response on that.
Sorry, I raised my hand, but yes, I have been to a
I'm
closing.
not seeing everybody right now. So what happens is if I got everybody turned on this screen, it cuts off half of my screen on the verbiage. So I've got everybody kind of turned off. So I will turn you back on. Okay. So I've got some of you on there. Okay. So here's one of the things I think is really important about going to closings. If you, again, as I talked in the beginning, you spend a lot of time with this buyer and this seller developing a relationship. And as you develop this relationship with them, kind of what takes place is the very end, you close. And this is the success part of the whole process of listing the house or looking for houses, going through escrow, going through inspections, going through that whole process. And this is where everybody should celebrate. And if you show up at closing and hand a buyer their keys or in security codes, paperwork, as far as maybe manuals and so on the house that they just purchased, on the stoves, appliances, any things like that. Also, we always show up at closing with a nice closing gift, whether it's a buyer or a seller. And I also have a handwritten note in that closing gift. I have everybody on my team write a little note on that, because you know what, I've got a team. When we close a deal, that buyer seller's got to know probably most of the people on my team, and they've developed a relationship not just with me, but with them as well. So those kind of things are really important. The other thing is at closing, it's a great time for you to kind of connect on a different level with buyers and sellers, and also ask for business. Okay. You've had a great success story with them. You've gone through a process with them, and now you should ask them if they know of anybody else that's thinking of buying or selling a house, to make sure that they refer you and don't forget about you, because this, you'll do just as great a job for somebody that they refer to you as you just did for them. So attending those closings is highly important. After the closing, a day or so after the closing, call them, chat with them, find out how they're doing in their new house. If it's a seller, a lot of times we've sold them a house on the other side, or maybe they're moving out of the area. Ask them how their move's going. Ask them, just, converse with them, and then have a plan on how you're going to keep in touch with them long term. Here's the biggest mistake that most real estate agents make. is that they close a transaction and guess what? They forget about it. Buyer seller never hears from their agent again. In fact, I'm going to give you a tip. When I have a listing sale close, whoever buys that, I adopt them after the transaction, unless they're a Keller, unless they was a Keller Williams agent on the other side. So I put that buyer, even though they weren't my buyer, they bought my listing, I put them on my database and I start treating them as if they were my client. Because guess what? 9 times out of 10, that agent that just sold them the house is either going to be out of business in a year or two, or they're going to forget about them because they don't have any kind of process on how to keep in touch with them. They got their check and then that to them, they're done. A lot of the business I do is from buyers that I've adopted, just like that. In fact, here's what happens. A lot of times these buyers that we've adopted that actually bought one of our listings through another agent will contact us 5, 6, 7, 8, I don't know how many years down the road. And guess what? They think they bought the house through me. They can't remember who they bought the house through. They think they bought it through me. So that's how important that is. So make a note of that to make sure you do that, because that's a great source of business as you start selling listings. Okay. So any questions on any of that?
I have a question.
Sure.
Would you bring a gift to your buyer or seller on a closing day with you?
Yes. So you're asking what kind of closing gift?
Yeah, and if you bring it to the closing.
We do bring it to the closing. You know, every now and then we will have a situation where we don't go to a closing. You know, I just had a transaction where I just sold a campus property. My buyer is in San Diego. My seller lived in Portland. So, but I still do a closing gift to them. I sent both of them Escrow certificates, even though they're out of the area. So closing gifts can vary a lot. So I've got, we have a lady that does baskets. And she's actually done these for us for years. They're not real expensive. They're like $50 per basket, but they're very attractive. And we'll put goodies and so on in the baskets, and maybe, you know, a bottle of sparkling champagne or, you know, something in there that's kind of cool. But the most important part of it, I think, is that handwritten note that we attach to it with my whole team writing out a piece of that. And then we give it to them right at closing. If for some reason we don't close at a title company, sometimes we have somebody that can't leave their house or whatever, then I'll have the gift delivered to their door. So, but we always do a closing. And you don't have to do anything that's extravagant. You don't have to do anything that's real expensive, but just something that shows some appreciation for them doing business with you, I think is highly important. You're going to talk to some agents that say, hey, I never do closing gifts. And the reason I don't is when you go to your doctor, does your doctor give you a closing gift? Well, no, he doesn't, but I don't expect it either. But if I got one from him, would I think it was cool? Yeah, I would, because it showed that, you know, he appreciated me coming to him and giving him business. And so I think the closing gift is important. I think even more important is your contact with that client and your continued contact with them. So the whole thing all kind of just plays together. So hope that helps. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions real quick before we move on? Okay. So closing checklist. We talked about this a little bit. I'm a stickler on checklists. They're highly important because if you don't do them, you're going to leave stuff out. You're going to forget things. And especially if you get multiple transactions going, man, you get involved in 5 or 6 transactions going at the same time. And it is so easy to drop the ball on somebody on something. So having checklists that you go through and you look at every single day on every one of your transactions is highly important. We use Command. You guys probably are all using it too. It's really automated, this whole process, and you can go through and easily keep track of everything that's going on through the whole process with your checklist and so on. But the biggest thing with checklists is use them. Look at them every single day and trust in them, you know, because this is your track record of everything that you've done. And that way you're not going to go back and second guess whether you did something. And at the end of the day, guess what? This is what keeps you from dropping the ball on your client. It really is. Having those checklists is highly important. So listing agent contact to close checklist is really important. When the contract starts, have a contract just like and one for the buyer too. So from day one, as soon as you go into contract, have that checklist begin and have it follow all the way through. Last thing on the checklist is the client gift. Go to closing and the client gift. And then once we go through that, we have, it's basically another checklist, but it is what we do with clients after close. And that's our touch system, 33 touch, 52 touch, 65 touch, whatever it is. But this is how we deal with the clients after we close. So we never really quit on them. The checklist just transfers from one to another. So being really anal about your checklists and using your checklist is a highly important part of this whole process. Okay. Be a problem solver. So that's really a lot of what we are, is problem solvers, because we always have problems, and real estate is filled with tons of problems. That's why people pay us a whole lot of money to help them buy or sell a house, because guess what? We can get them through the process. We can get them through a process that probably they might be able to get through it themselves. There's for sale by owners get through it somehow. I don't know how the heck they do, but they get through it. But I guarantee you that most of them have a whole lot of issues that they have to deal with because they probably didn't have any idea what the heck they were doing going through the process. We do. We're the experts. That's what we're getting paid for. We're getting paid to take somebody through the process of buying or selling a house and keeping it smooth all the way through. Big part of that's being a problem solver. And as I mentioned to you before, a little bit earlier, I think one of the biggest things on solving problems is be a better listener than talker. Listen to people and listen to what their concerns are and address their concerns, because most of the problems that we're going to have come as a result of something that somebody has a problem over. You get a repair back that states that you've got a bad roof. You've got a buyer that, of course, wants a new roof put on that house. And the lender's probably going to make you put a new roof on that house. Roofs are expensive now. I mean, that roof can be $25,000 or $30,000 now. So it's a big expense for a seller. So you've got a buyer that expects that, but now you've got a seller that's saying, man, I'm going to give them a brand new roof. If I had a brand new roof on that house when I put it on the market, I probably would have sold it for more money. Is that a true statement? Yeah, many times it is. Is the buyer right to demand a new roof? Well, yeah, they are, because they're paying a lot of money for a house. They should expect to have a good roof on the house, shouldn't they? Is the seller right because he's putting out all this money and his house is probably worth more because it's got a new roof on it? Yeah, he's probably right too. So how do you bridge the gap between the two? Now you become a problem solver. Okay. And you're going to run into issue after issue after issue with this. You're going to run into, and you guys probably already have, because it sounds like some of you are already into transactions and have probably done a few transactions, and there is some transactions are smoother than others, but man, some of them can be a rocky road all the way through. And how good you are at solving those problems is going to decide whether at the end of the day you get all the way through that little chart we went through and get paid. And what your buyer or seller is going to think about you as a real estate agent as to how seamlessly and how well you deal with problems and how you solve those problems. Okay. So has anybody had any kind of a problem with a real estate transaction they'd like to talk about and kind of give me an example of it? Okay, I think it's important we talk, we kind of look at a couple different examples of problems and how you resolve that. One of the things that we help each other with is kind of talking about these things. So anybody got a current issue? Let's start with that.
I have a question. Maybe it's not an issue, but maybe potential issue. I'm
Okay.
working with potential buyers, and they already mentioned that we're looking for the house, and it's okay if it's doesn't have extra bedroom. We can add one. We can build one
Okay.
bedroom. Should I jump in and tell them, well, it might be super expensive, or before they even get there? Should I advise my buyers, well, listen, we have shorter supply and contractors not available, and you're thinking to build another room and add it to the house?
Yeah, so here, that's a good one. So you can run into this quite a bit. So let's say you have a buyer that finds a property that they absolutely love the property.
Yeah.
It's in the location. It's got everything that they want, except for it's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house. And they really need a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. Okay. The house is on a piece of property that's kind of large and, would have the options of course, adding another bath and maybe another bedroom. And so they think about, well, should I make an offer on this property and then down the road I can just add on to it? We've been looking for a long time, haven't been able to find anything that's a perfect property except for this. So if you get thrown a question like that, it's a tough one, because what you've got to do is say, okay, here's what you got to tell the buyer, here's what you need to understand. Number one, adding onto a house is probably going to cost you more money than if you found a house that already had these. Okay. If you love where it's at, where the house is at, and you're willing to spend more money just to have that location, then maybe that is an option for you. But here's what I would suggest. I would suggest that maybe we get a contractor to at least give us an idea of what it would cost you to do that before you just jump ahead and make an offer on this house, assuming that that's going to be an option down the road. Okay.
And we can invite that extra contractor during the inspection period, or we can just right away contact the
Yeah, you probably wouldn't want to have him there during the you'd probably want to deal with that issue before you ever got into having a inspection.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay. And the reason for that, you don't want somebody making an offer on a property unless they're pretty sure they're going to buy it. So that's one of those things that you want to probably clear up front before the buyer even makes an offer on. So what you might want to do is, if they're interested in that property, let the listing agent know that you've got a buyer that's got interest in it, but they'd like to have a contractor take a look at the house before they make an offer, and set up a time with that listing agent for that contractor to go in and just take a quick look and give you a bid.
Yeah, that's a good tip. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else got an issue that they're dealing with right now that we want to talk about, or that they've gone through?
Most everyone in here knows about my current issue, where there was a last minute court order 5 days before closing, where the seller's daughter asked to be temporary conservator and stop the sale of the house. So I'm waiting for the attorney to work with her client, and it just seems like the most I can do right now is talk with the title company. But I did have to, use Colleen Gordon, our principal broker, quite a bit, lean on her for advice through this, because it does involve like legal matters. But I'll say I really don't know. I kind of want to know the answer to this. Like, how much does the selling agent, that listing agent, he's asking me if we need to extend closing, but I was told by the title company that we don't need to, but he's hearing something from his principal broker that's different than what I'm hearing from mine. And so
what's your close date?
It was the 10th.
The 10th of
November.
You're already out of contract.
Right. And so we signed though on the 9th.
You signed with the title company?
Yeah. So it's really peculiar. I know it normally.
Well, I would probably still do an extension.
Yeah.
So that you keep your contract. Keeping contract, even though you've already signed, I'd still, you don't want to end up with another legal issue because of this, and not extending that contract could potentially put you into that.
Got it.
So if you've
Yes.
got both parties that sign an extension for closing, it's probably a really smart thing to do.
Yeah. And then I guess the question is then who signs on the seller's behalf? So he's, you know, been
So
deemed
who's the legal seller?
the gentleman who was the legal seller, he's now, there's a temporary judgment against him as financially incompetent.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if he can sign that or not.
So well,
right?
Did he sign the contracts all the way through?
Yes.
Okay, I'd probably have him sign it.
Okay.
Because what the court's going to decide on is whether he legally could sign the contract or not, right?
Right.
If they say he legally can't sign it, you're shot out of the water anyway. If they judge it in his favor that he could legally sign it, then
yeah.
Yeah.
I have another question, problem with a seller. If people aren't champing at the bit to get a chance to talk to you, but I have a couple that was, let's see. So an agent talked to them last year and told them that they could sell their 4-bedroom, 3-bath home for $550. And so they've got this number in their mind. I pulled comps. It was really hard to find comps with 3 baths. It was a lot of 4-bedroom, 1-bath or 3-bedroom, 2-bath.
Okay.
So I tried to kind of adjust that, but still it's not coming out to $550. And they definitely have very specific design choices. For example, the bathroom that they renovated, they put this black granite all throughout the whole bottom and side, like every wall is covered with it.
Okay.
With like gold accents and things. And so they've got a very, like I said, distinct style. I'm not sure it's going to appeal to every buyer. So I'm not really sure. And on top of that, Redfin had their square footage listed at 2,000 something. It was including the unfinished portion of the basement and the garage square footage.
Okay.
So they had an inflated Redfin estimate as well. And as soon as we adjusted for the square footage, that price jumped down to $525, which is much closer to what I was suggesting they list at.
Okay.
But I know that. So what do you recommend when you have a seller who loves their upgrades, loves their home, thinks that it's going to sell for this super high price? What do you do in that situation?
Well, guess what? You got to run into that 9 times out of 10 with sellers. I mean, most sellers have an inflated idea of what their home is worth. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen, there's a kind of a cartoon that's out there, and it shows a picture of a house in the view of a seller, and it's a huge, great big house. And then it shows a buyer's view of the house, and it's a little dinky house. And then it shows the house in the view of the appraiser, and it's kind of in the middle of the road, right? So here's the thing: this is where you have to rely on your knowledge, and not every home's the same. But still, in this market, it's a little bit tough because we don't have a lot of comps sometimes. So if you've got a home that, say, the seller thinks is worth $550, they think it's worth $550. You look at the house, you can't even find any comps that justify $550, and on top of that, it's got some design issues or some functionality problems, or it's on a busy street, or other things that could affect value. You have to use your judgment as to where that home should be priced. Now, the other thing you need to look at in this market is how much competition is there for that house on the market right now, right? So if you don't have anything else on the market around that house, or maybe there hasn't been anything on the market for that in that area, in that price range for a while, maybe $550 is the price. I can't tell you that it isn't, but the difference between $550 and $525 in this market, man, I'll tell you, it's a tough one. I probably, if they've had another agent that came in and told them $550, I might go in and say, hey, you know what? I'd be willing to list it at $550. But guess what? In this market, if we don't have at least one offer on your house within 2 weeks, you need to agree with me before I list your house that we're going to drop your price down to $525. Because if you don't have an offer within 2 weeks, it means we overpriced your property, and we can't afford to leave your home overpriced right now, because the market could be shifting and I could cost you money by leaving you overpriced and turning buyers away. So if you'll work with me on that, I'd be willing to try your 550, but if not, we're going to jump down to my price and I bet you we get you sold. So does that sound good?
Yes, thank you.
And sometimes you're going to have sellers, believe me, they're so far out of line on pricing, you might walk away from a listing. I've walked away from them before because they're just unreasonable. And you know what? You're better off to do that than you are to take a listing and then have that seller upset with you because you can't get their home sold. So, and again, if you do have a home that you take maybe a little bit higher price than what you feel comfortable with, then talk with them, just like I just said, and set up some kind of a graduated scale of reductions. Don't do it over a long period of time though, because if it's a long period of time, it'll kill you. But do it over a short period of time of price reductions if you don't have offers. Sometimes that'll get you the listing and you're going to get to where you need to get it sold by doing that. So, but I've also had ones that I've walked away from. They've hired another agent, been on the offer or on the market with that other agent, didn't sell it because it was overpriced, and ended up calling me and telling me, hey, you were right in the beginning. And so we didn't sell with the other agent. We'd like to list with you. I've had that happen numerous times. So you know, a lot of things in real estate is, and that's one of the things that I know you guys are doing. You're out there viewing houses all the time, right? Everybody's looking at houses all the time. Because man, in this market especially, you need to know the inventory and you need to know what's going on in this market out there, because people are relying on us for our professional advice. And it's important that, you know, we're accurate with that, and good job on checking out those comps on that, because a lot of agents wouldn't have done that. So, and the other thing is you gotta relay to people that they can't rely on Redfin and Zillow. You know, sometimes they're right on, sometimes they're way high, sometimes they're way low. And you need to tell them that sometimes they're going to be low enough that it's going to cost you money. Zillow can't figure it out. They couldn't even figure it out. As you know, they just closed down their whole operation on buying houses because they couldn't figure out how to price them. So how would you have, if you're selling your house, how would you trust Zillow when they can't even figure it out when it's their money? Okay. That was the greatest thing that ever happened to help us with our argument against Zillow when they just went bankrupt with their own company because they couldn't figure out pricing. So anyway, okay. Any other problems that somebody's dealt with that we got one more and then we're going to move on. Okay. So the other thing I'm going to touch on before I leave this though is that in our office we're really fortunate because we got a great principal broker, Tom Dye. You've got some other agents that are around, myself, Ben Mondragon, Gary Draper, Larry Alberts. There's a multitude of agents that have been here for a long time, some of them longer than I have even. So they've been in the business longer than I have anyway. Don't be afraid to ask questions about anybody. If you've got an issue going on, if Tom's out of the office or something, go talk with Mara. Mara knows a lot. Talk with Tanya, Sarah, anybody. You can get answers at this company, and don't just step into something that you feel uncomfortable with. Get help. That's what this company is all about. You know, when we started Keller Williams, that's one of the reasons I started a Keller Williams company here in Eugene, is because that's the kind of company we are. We're here to help each other. So don't be afraid to reach out and get help with problems, because help's here. And a lot of times, you know what, I go in and I talk. I bet there isn't a week goes by I don't go sit in Tom's office and run things by him to get a second opinion on things. So, and I've done thousands of transactions, and I think I've dealt with almost every problem that you could conceivably deal with in a real estate transaction, but I still go in and get second opinions a lot. So don't be afraid to do that. Okay. Again, so seize the golden opportunity to discuss how to leave a good impression. We kind of talked about that already, about leaving a good impression, closing gift, you know, showing up at closings and so on. Highly important, I think. So agents have two agendas, and my screen just got, just excuse me for a second. Okay. So NAR reports that 88% of clients say that they would, and I got to go back now. This thing is driving me nuts. Okay. Agents have two agendas. One, to move the current transaction toward a successful closing, and two, to ensure referrals. Most agents don't get that. So, you know, Gary really preaches on exactly what I was talking to you about too. And that's, you know, to ensure getting a referral, the job you do through the transaction is highly important. The impression you leave is highly important to be able to put yourself in the position where you're going to get referred. And man, I'll tell you what, I would say this year, I don't know, I'm guessing we've done over 20, maybe 25 transactions, maybe even more than that. I can't tell you, but it's been a bunch of them that have been referrals from past clients. There's been a ton of them. And it seems like every time I turn around, we're getting another referral from one of our past clients. And the other thing is referrals from other real estate agents too. And I could spend a whole day on just telling you about how to do that. But before I get off today, I'm going to kind of give you a couple little ideas on how to get referrals from other real estate agents. I won't do it right now, but I'll leave you with that because I think it's something that over time you can generate a lot of money from. Okay. NAR reports that 88% of the clients say they would use their real estate agent again, but only 12% do. Don't be in that 76% that loses touch with their past clients. Well, we kind of talked about this a little bit, but man, think about that. Only 12% actually use their agent again. And again, the reason for that is, guess what? The agents dropped the ball. They did the transaction, and maybe they kept in touch with that client for a few months, maybe even for a few years, but they didn't keep in touch with them long term. And here's one of the things I can tell you. I've got people in my database. Some of them have been in there 25 years or longer, and they've never referred anybody to me, but they're still in my database. And I've got people in my database that have been there that long, and all of a sudden I get a referral from them. So once you're in my database, you're going to hear from me no less than 5 times a month. And you're going to hear from me until you either pass on to another world or you call me up and tell me you want to be taken out of my database. And I get very few of those. So once you're in my database, you stay in my database, and you're going to know who I am, and I'm going to be keeping in touch with you. And you're going to know that I'm still in real estate, and you're going to know that I'm doing a lot of real estate, and you're going to know that I'm knowledgeable about the real estate market. And if you want to buy or sell a home in Eugene, Oregon, I'm your best guy. Okay? Because I'm going to keep that in front of you all the time. You're never going to forget about me. So you do that, you're not going to fall into that 12%. I guarantee you won't. Now, are you ever going to hit 100%? No, because here's what happens. You sell a house to somebody, and 5 years later, Aunt Nellie becomes a real estate agent, and they're going to use Aunt Nellie over you anytime. Or their daughter becomes a real estate agent, or one of them becomes a real estate agent. Okay? Just happens. But here's the other thing that happens. Daughter wants to become a real estate agent, and guess what they do? They call you. Hey, my daughter's thinking about becoming a real estate agent, and would you mind if she got in touch with you? Well, heck no. So guess what? You help the daughter get through the process of becoming a real estate agent. She comes into Keller Williams, and because you recruit her into Keller Williams, and the great thing about Keller Williams, we have profit sharing. And if you're the reason that she came to Keller Williams, pretty good chance she's going to name you as a sponsor. Now, guess what? Now you start getting some profit share dollars off of those agents that come in like that. I've got a buyer's agent that I just hired on my team that their family used to be my next door neighbors. And the last time I remember seeing her before she came in and interviewed with me to become a buyer's agent, I remember her in about 4th grade with her soccer stuff on, heading off to soccer games all the time. So that was a few years back, but now she's a buyer's agent on my team because guess what? Her mom knew I was in real estate. They used to be my neighbors. She called me, told me that Jordan was thinking about getting into real estate and wanted her to come in and talk to me. And she went through, got her license. I was highly impressed with her. We talked, and now she's on my team. So lots of good things happen when you keep in touch with people. So I could go on and on and on about that all day long. But anyway, to go back, these numbers speak for themselves. And that's why it's important to keep in touch.
I have a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
About monthly touches. I think the most effective one is to send out the newsletter with an update on the market. Do we have any template we can use?
Well, you know what? Yeah, there's all kinds of templates you can use.
We've written newsletter monthly market update, so we can just take it, put our info on it, and send out.
So guess what? If you go into RMLS once a month and you click on latest market action, Lane County, it will pull up the entire report with all the statistics on what took place in the previous month. Okay, there's your newsletter. Okay, all you got to do is cut and paste that. You can go into, go onto the internet, go to realtor.com. There's tons and tons of real estate articles in realtor.com. You can cut and paste one of those articles anytime you want and use that as a newsletter. What I do is I send out the statistics from the latest market action. I send that out by email to my entire database once a month. I also send out a printed newsletter to not my entire database, but that newsletter goes out to my past client database. That goes out once a month. And then I send out the email version of that printed newsletter once a month, and that hits my entire database. So my entire database, if I look at my entire database, I've got about 40,000 in it. But guess what? I've only got email addresses for most of those, okay? But my past client database, the ones that are in my database, that people that have done business with me, I've got about 3,500 in that. So it's a much smaller database. Those are the ones that I keep in touch with 5 times a month. My entire database, the 15,000, I keep in touch with them only by email, and that's only a couple times a month, okay? So, but that client database is the most important one. That's the ones that you did transaction with them. They know who you are. You've already developed a relationship with them. Also in that database, you can have, people that are your best friends, your relatives, all kinds of people you can have in that database that you're keeping in touch with. They don't have to just be clients, but those are the people that you have a direct relationship with. They know who you are, and either professionally or sometimes just socially. Okay.
Okay.
But it's easy to do those newsletters. There's other newsletters. If you go on and just Google newsletters, there's all kinds of different newsletter templates. And there's even companies that do newsletters for you where you can fill in a lot of the content, but they'll provide the template and then you fill in the content.
Okay.
And so it just takes a little bit of finagling, but it's easy to do it.
I see. I thought we just have one template available for us, KW.
Yeah, I think
Not the case, I guess. We need to
KW probably has one. I hate to say this, I've got a couple other ones that I've used for years that we developed themselves. So I'm not really familiar with everything KW has, but I'm sure they probably have a template. You can get a whole, talk to Sarah or
oh, right, Sarah, I have her contact, yes.
Yeah, or anybody, they can probably get you headed in the right direction on what Keller Williams has got. So
thank you.
The biggest thing is you do it, and postcards are important too. We send out a ton of postcards. We send out a client appreciation postcard that one of them we do is we do it through marketing resources with Trenda. Sarah can get you in touch with her if you haven't got acquainted with her, but she does a postcard where she has different businesses that have a free offering every single month. So everybody that's our past client, they get a postcard for, and this month I think it was, I can't remember what it was, free pizza at Papa's. I can't remember what it is. So she's cut a deal with them. We send that out. So we'll send those out, and not everybody that gets them uses them, thank goodness, because it costs us a little bit of money every time they go in and use them. But we'll have maybe 100 people a month use those coupons, but it's something free they get from us every single month. And once you become a client, you get that every month from us. So things like that are highly important. in just keeping in front of people. So there's a lot of different things you do, and get creative. The other thing I'm going to tell you is important with your past clients is call them. Make sure you call them no less than once a year. And we go through our entire database twice a year. Now we've got enough people in our database. It takes my whole team to do it. So we divide up our database and we call through them twice a year. Talk to every single person in there. You're going to get most of your referral business. By keeping it in front of them, they're going to know who you are. And when you call them, they're not going to be guessing. They're not going to be saying, oh my gosh, who's Courtney? Courtney, who's Courtney? Okay. They're going to remember who you are, but having that touch of you actually calling them and talking to them and checking in with them and then asking them for referrals, that's where you're going to get most of your referrals. Okay. So pick up the phone, talk to them. If you got a close relationship with them, I text a ton of them. I really do. I text a ton of them. And also I keep in touch with them on social media constantly, all the time. Okay. Because that's where they're at. So there's a lot of different ways you can keep in front of people. Okay. All right. Tokens of appreciation, right? Thank you, gift ideas. Okay. I kind of gave you guys some ideas on what we do for gift ideas, but get creative on that too. You might want to tailor your gifts to whoever it is your client is, and maybe have something that's really something maybe a little bit more personal even than what we're doing. Hey, the other thing is write thank you cards. Handwritten thank you cards are huge. Nobody does them anymore. After you've closed a transaction, do a handwritten thank you card and send it to them. Send them another one a month later. And do that with people, you run into one of your clients at the grocery store. When you get back to your office, write a handwritten card to them. Hey, great seeing you at the grocery store today. It was great to catch up with you and your family. Just wanted to remind you, if you or anybody you know is thinking of buying or selling real estate, I'm here to serve you and your friends. So don't be afraid. So please refer me. So sending out those handwritten cards, I send out no fewer than 2 every single day. I tell my teams, I want you to send out 2 handwritten cards every single day. Sometimes it gets hard to think of who you're going to send them to, but if you think hard enough, you can find somebody to send them to. We print out a stack of handwritten cards that everybody keeps in their desk so that every single day you don't forget to send out your 2 cards. I'll tell you what, if you get in the habit of doing that, you won't believe what that'll do for your business, because nobody does it anymore. What is
sorry. I was just gonna ask you, does it get expensive for postage?
Well, yeah, it might, but man, if I get a $12,000 commission check out of a 50-cent stamp, that's not bad. Right? One thing about the real estate business is you don't want to spend money in places that don't give you a return on your investment. Handwritten cards, you'll get a great return on your investment. I guarantee you. What kind of reaction do you have when you get a handwritten card from somebody? Is it a lot different reaction than if you just got a typed letter? Heck yeah, it is.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's impactful. It's really impactful. So it's not expensive to do it. I mean, if you send out 20 of them a month, the price of the card and the stamp might be $1 altogether. If you send out 25 of them a month, that's $25 a month to have a huge impact on people. That's not bad.
Do you put a business card in those?
Sometimes I do. It just depends. If it's somebody that I just met, say I was out to dinner with my wife and I was sat next to a couple at the restaurant and we started talking about real estate and they had a bunch of questions. You know what I'll typically say? I'd say, hey, here's something I can do for you. I send out a monthly report on what's taking place with the real estate market of the Eugene and Springfield area. I'd love to put you on that and it'll keep you up to date with it and it'll answer a lot of the questions you just had for me. Give me your name and your address and your email address and I'll have them write it down and give that to me. And I'll say, I'll put you on my, in my database and start sending you that information once a month by email. And then guess what I do? When I get back to my office the next day, I write out a thank you card and I mail it to them. Okay. Or if they just gave me an email address, I'll send them a thank you email letter. Okay. So if I only got an email address, I'll still send it to them. It's just going to be electronic instead of physical. Physical is a lot more impactful if you can do it, but just recognizing that you met them and talked to them, it's impactful too. Okay. All right.
I have a question, if it's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So while you're speaking about that, like Christmas cards and whatnot, I'm putting together like a huge list and whatnot and trying to get them all together.
Yeah.
Would you recommend putting business cards in those, or
No.
is that weird?
No, I wouldn't.
Okay, I didn't think so, but I wanted to make sure on someone else's opinion.
Yeah,
All
you
right.
know what? There's things like Christmas cards. I think it's really important you send them out to your client list. But you know, here it's sometimes people get turned off if you if they feel like you're pushing for business. Okay. In other words, you can soft sell your business to people, but don't hard sell them. Okay. And putting a business card and a Christmas card might be conceived by some people as doing that. So you kind of got to be, a lot of this isn't about throwing your business card in there, because a lot of it is just reminding them who you are and keeping your name in front of them. And sending them a Christmas card is kind of the warm touch deal, because you don't want to be all just business. You want to have the warm personal side of you too, because that's what attracts people to you as much as the business side. You want them to know that if they have a friend or relative that needs to buy or sell a house, you're the person to do it. But they also, people want to do business with people they like. Okay. So you want them to like you. And so trying to set up a personal relationship with people is highly important. Okay. And I've got a whole class that I teach on doing that on the internet, how to develop relationships with people on the internet. And that's an important part of it, is that not just posting things about you and how many homes you sell and the homes you sell and the homes you list and all that, but also show your personal side, because you want people to know who you are. You don't want them to know too much about you. You got to be careful about what you post. You know, you don't want to put pictures on there like I see some realtors of the tailgate party where everybody's drunk and everything. You want to be careful about those on the internet, but you want to show your personal side as well as your professional side in everything you do. Does that help?
Yes. And how do we access your class? Is it on the schedule?
Well, you'd have to. I teach some classes here, but I do seminars nationally, so that's one of the sessions I do. And sometimes Leslie will have me do a session here. We haven't done many for a while because of COVID, and we just haven't done that much. But I think she's going to start scheduling stuff again, and that's one of them. I'll talk to Leslie about getting set up.
Cool. So it's going to be on our KW class schedule somewhere.
Yeah, I'll talk to her about getting some set up. I've got a number of different classes I do that I haven't done here for a while, but I'd love to do them. So putting it all together, action plan. Okay. You guys are working on your action plans for Ignite. Okay. Keeping up with it. Okay. Prepare for your final Ignite class. I don't know what class this is. Is your final class coming up? Okay.
It's on Thursday.
What's that?
It's on Thursday.
On Thursday. Wow. You guys are almost graduates. So have you guys had a good experience at Ignite?
Yeah, I have. I think it's very eye-opening and very informative.
Great. Yeah, you know what? It's really interesting because I started Keller Williams, it's been almost 17 years ago. But before that, I was one of the owners at Remax, and I sold my interest in Remax to open Keller Williams. But we had a lot of new agents, and there's nothing wrong with Remax, by the way. It's a great company, but they don't have the training Keller Williams has. And one of the things I noticed was that we had a lot of new agents that started there, but the success rate of the new agents at that company and other companies is not what it is at Keller Williams. And I think one of the things that's Keller Williams does that other companies don't do, and one of them is Ignite, going through this class. And I think with what Mara's working with Mara and things, you guys go through that process, you've got a leg up on other new agents, because the success rate of people getting into the real estate industry is pretty low. I think after I haven't seen recent stats, but the success rate of agents after 1 year is pretty low. And I don't see that at Keller Williams. I see I see the most of the agents that come in here, unless they just don't try, I see them succeeding. And so, but I think the other thing that you guys all need to take advantage of, and I touched on this a little bit before, and it's been a little bit tough since COVID, when nobody was coming in the office. But get to know the agents that have been in this office for a while and use them as your resources, because they'll all share with you. I got open door in my office. I'm right down at the end of the hallway, just down past Tanya. You can come to my office anytime. I'll help you with anything. I'll show you anything I do. I'll show you postcards. I'll show you newsletters. I'll show you emails. I'll show you texts, whatever you want. You come to my office, I'll show it to you. I'll help you out with whatever you got. There aren't any other offices in Eugene that'll do that. So you guys got a leg up on everybody. You got a lot of resources here, so use them. And I've been around for a while. Back, I don't do it anymore. I don't want to work that hard, but back years ago, we did over 300 transactions every year. So
I think I just made this connection. Are you Ryan's dad?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Ryan works for me. So anyway, okay. So anyway, that's the reason I asked about Ignite. Is I think it's you guys are getting some really good information here. And it gives you a leg up. The other thing is to go on from Ignite, plug into education at Keller Williams. Chris Suarez, Leslie, man, those guys are great resources. Chris Suarez is one of the greatest resources for real estate of anybody in the country. And plug into whatever he's doing, because man, that guy will help you out. He'll help take you to the next level. And the other thing is, plug into Keller Williams. Go to Mega Camp. Go to Family Reunion. I know it's a hassle and it costs some money to do it, but I'll tell you what, it's worth it. You'll get around agents that you'll learn so much from at any of those that Keller Williams offers, that it's well worth your time to do it. And it's just a great resource that you have at this company that no other companies have. So anyway, that's just my plug. Okay. That's what they have here at the end: enhance your learning. Don't quit learning. The one thing that I think that real estate agents that I see don't make it to the next level and just kind of get stuck in it. They hit a glass ceiling and they get stuck. You can be successful at real estate and it can control your life. It can be all consuming and all you do is real estate 24/7. And that's no fun. It really isn't. I've been there. One of the things you can do by continuing to learn is learn how to control your life, your real estate life, so that you have a life and you live a balanced life and do a ton of business. And you break through that glass ceiling of only doing so many transactions a year and jump to the next level without destroying your life. And I can tell you, when I was doing 200 plus transactions a year, I was working 4 days a week and doing it. But I didn't learn that on my own. I learned that from a group of agents that I got to meet that had already figured that out, and I learned it from them. And that's what attracted me to Keller Williams, was a lot of those agents I got to know were Keller Williams agents. And that's where they got it from, was through Keller Williams. So don't quit learning. Keep keep going. You'll never get to a point in real estate that you don't need to learn, because there's always somebody or something you can learn to help you out. Okay. All right. So that's kind of it for the day. So any other things I can help any of you with before we say goodbye today? Any questions? Anything I can help you with your business?
How to get a referral from an agent?
How to get yeah, that's right. I was going to tell you how to do that. Okay, so here's one of the things that that's highly important about going to seminars outside of Eugene, family reunion, mega camp. If they've got a seminar up in Portland or Vancouver or Seattle, guess what? I get business cards from every single agent, and I talk to as many agents as I can. And guess what I do? I come back, I stick them in my command database. I've got a category for it's called outside agents. They're all in there. Guess what I do? I send out once a month an email to every single one of them, and I send out a postcard to every one of those agents every single month. I keep in touch with them. I let them know that if they got a referral coming to Eugene, Oregon, I'm the resource. I just closed a $2 million sale over a referral that came from one of those agents. Okay. Not a bad deal. I don't mind giving 25% if I got a $2 million sale. Okay. I'd never had that if I didn't have that relationship, hadn't maintained that relationship with that agent. I probably get a referral from an agent outside of Eugene. I probably get one a month. Okay. So don't rely just on building your client database, which is the most important, but build your real estate agent database as well. The longer you're in this business, the more agents you meet outside this area. Keep in touch with them. Make sure they know you're the agent in Eugene. Okay.
I have a question. I have a
sure
lot of friends and colleagues out of state. And I know many of them will be in the market to buy or sell. Now I'm thinking, what would be the best way to reach out to them to let them know that I'm in the real estate business right now, and I can help them to find the agent in their state.
Sure. So are most of them in one area, or are they in a variety of different areas?
Throughout California and Washington.
Okay. So I would probably try to develop a relationship with a Keller Williams agent in some of those areas where those people are at. And then let them know if they're thinking about buying or selling a house, you have a relationship with agents in their area, and you'd be glad to refer them to your friend.
Right. And just to ask them, please contact me first before you go out and look for that agent.
Yep, 25% every time.
Help you with the best agent I can find in my network. And should it be the agent in Keller Williams network, or it can be?
It can be outside of Keller Williams, but it's really easy to go into KW Connect, and you can search for agents in there by geographic area. And I've done this quite a bit. In fact, I just did this with an agent in I can't even think of the name of the town in Colorado, but we had some people that were moving there. I went into KW Connect, looked in that geographic area. I found 3 different agents that looking at their profiles looked like they'd be good agents, called them, and then I picked one of them. I did the same thing last month with a family that was moving into town in Michigan. So yeah, so it's easy to do it.
Thank you.
Any other questions real quick? All right. Good job, you guys. Thanks. You guys are, I mean, just listening to you at the beginning of this, sounds like every single one of you guys are going to be great agents. Sounds like you guys got some business going already. Keep it up. Work hard. Play hard. Come and see me anytime you got any questions and you wanted to see anything I'm doing. Like I said, I got an open door. So
thank you.
All right. Thanks for being with us today, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.